Imagine you woke up tomorrow and your bank balance was cut in half. No one stole it, no one hacked you, yet it was gone. You'd panic. You'd call the bank, check every transaction, retrace every step. But when your attention gets drained every single day by meaningless conversations, notifications, gossip, distractions, you don't react the same way. You just let it happen. Because unlike money, attention doesn't visibly disappear from your account. It's stolen quietly, second by second, until there's nothing left to invest in yourself. Machiavelli would call that the most foolish form of poverty, the poverty of focus. The one that makes a man believe he's working hard when in truth, he's being used. Attention is not just awareness, it's your inner currency. It decides what you notice, what you ignore, and what grows inside you. Every great manipulator in history understood this. You don't need to take someone's wealth or land to control them. Just occupy their mind. Get them obsessed with trivial matters. Make them emotionally reactive. And they'll build their own cage for you. That's how kings ruled crowds. That's how modern systems rule you now. Not through chains, but through divided attention. You can't build real power later in life if your mind is constantly fragmented. Machiavelli warned that the man who cannot hold his attention cannot hold his destiny, because attention is what connects vision to action. Without it, you'll chase every urgent thing and neglect the important ones. You'll mistake noise for opportunity. You'll scroll instead of plan. You'll talk instead of move. And years later, you'll call it bad luck when it was just bad focus. Think of every distraction as an invisible tax. Each time you check your phone for no reason, you're paying a small fee in time, energy, and clarity. Each time you argue online, you're losing the compound interest of calm thinking. The modern world is designed to bankrupt you mentally. Every platform is built around one principle. Keep your eyes locked, your emotions hooked, and your sense of time distorted. They don't sell you products. They sell your attention to those who can afford it. And if you don't learn to protect it like you would your last dollar, you'll spend your life broke in the one currency that matters most. Now, here's what most people miss. Guarding your attention doesn't mean isolating yourself. Machiavelli would never advocate retreating from the world. Power demands presence, but it's directed presence. You choose where your mind goes, when it goes, and why. You're not reactive, you're strategic. He would say, the wise man controls his eyes before he controls his words, because your gaze determines your future battlefield. Wherever your attention rests, your power flows. But this requires something most people avoid: boredom. The ability to sit with stillness without seeking stimulation. The modern mind treats silence like pain. It rushes to fill it. Yet that silence is where clarity grows. When you refuse to constantly feed your mind with cheap stimulation, you begin to see how much of your thinking wasn't even yours. You'll notice your opinions were borrowed, your emotions manipulated, your habits installed. The moment you stop consuming, the fog lifts, and that's exactly why few ever do. It's uncomfortable to realize how much of your focus you've sold away. So here's the Machiavellian way. Treat attention as investment capital. Ask yourself before every action, what return will this give me? Not in money, but in strength, knowledge, or control. If you read a book, do it because it sharpens your understanding of human nature. If you spend time with someone, do it because it expands your network or deepens your wisdom. If you rest to recover your clarity, not to escape your purpose. The weak spend attention to feel good now. The strong invest it to dominate later. Most people waste their best mental years chasing validation. They scatter their focus across social approval, endless entertainment, constant comparison. They don't realize that attention is not infinite. Once you spread it too thin, it loses its power to transform anything. That's why the average person never builds anything meaningful. Their attention is diluted across too many fronts. They start everything, finish nothing, and wonder why they feel empty. Machiavelli would call them peasants of the mind, always busy, never powerful. You can spot these people easily. They can't hold eye contact for long. Their speech drifts. Their emotions fluctuate based on external noise. They are constantly looking for something, someone, to occupy their focus. But here's the secret. When your attention becomes disciplined, people feel it. The room shifts when you enter. Your stillness makes others restless. They sense that you're not easily distracted, not easily impressed, not easily moved. That's power. And it starts with mastering where your mind looks when no one's watching. If attention is money, awareness is your bank. And that bank can either grow or collapse depending on what you deposit daily. What do you consume in the first hour of your morning? Do you start your day collecting noise or creating order? Machiavelli would say, "He who allows others to set his thoughts wakes up already conquered." The first minutes of your day reveal who owns your mind, you or the world. Stop letting everyone access your attention for free. Every text, every notification, every unfiltered opinion online, it's all a withdrawal. And most of them aren't even conscious of what they're taking from you. Start charging mentally for access, not with money, but with intention. Ask, is this worth my focus? Will this conversation, this show, this headline make me stronger or smaller? When you start filtering like that, you'll find that 90% of what fights for your attention doesn't deserve it. Here's what Machiavelli understood. Attention creates power because it directs perception, and perception creates influence. When you learn to narrow your focus, you see what others miss. You start anticipating moves before they happen. You notice the motives behind words, the cracks behind confidence, the fear behind arrogance. The man who observes quietly holds more control than the one who speaks loudly. Because words can be manipulated, but presence cannot. That's why powerful people often seem calm, even detached. They're not bored, they're measuring. They understand that every reaction costs something. Every emotional outburst spends your mental capital on what doesn't return anything. To the untrained mind, this looks cold. But to the strategist, it's economy. You don't waste attention on what you can't control. You redirect it to what compounds, self-mastery, leverage, timing. And this is the truth Machiavelli would whisper to anyone chasing power later in life. You cannot rebuild your focus after decades of neglect. You can rebuild money, reputation, even relationships, but not time. Attention wasted in your youth is opportunity vanished in your future. Because your habits of focus today become your quality of thought tomorrow. The scattered man will age into confusion. The disciplined one will age into wisdom. Most people think they need motivation. What they really need is mental budgeting. You don't need to feel inspired every day. You need to stop overspending your attention on things that give nothing back. That's the quiet law of power. Protect what feeds your clarity. Starve what drains it. Machiavelli wouldn't tell you to meditate or journal or recite affirmations. He'd tell you to become intentional with every glance, every thought, every word. Because when your attention becomes scarce, your value rises. That's the paradox. The less you give away your attention, the more people fight for it. You'll notice this as your focus grows. Suddenly, others start respecting your time, mirroring your calm, and craving your approval. It's not that you've changed how you speak. It's that your attention now carries weight. It's not scattered energy. It's concentrated fire. And in a distracted world, that's the rarest form of dominance. Real power doesn't come from knowing more. It comes from noticing more. And you can't notice what you constantly escape. Your attention is the gatekeeper of every possible version of your life. Spend it recklessly, and you'll live reactively. Guard it wisely, and you'll begin to create reality instead of merely surviving in someone else's. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Control attention, and you control everything that follows. Perception, influence, timing, and ultimately, fate. And that begins the moment you start treating your mind like a fortress instead of a public marketplace. The more selective you become with what you allow in, the sharper your judgment becomes. The sharper your judgment, the fewer mistakes you make. The fewer mistakes, the faster your power compounds. Until one day, people will call you lucky for what was simply discipline. That's how attention quietly builds empires, in silence over years, through the small, consistent act of choosing where you look. Most people never realize that attention is not just about focus, it's about loyalty. Every time you give your attention to something, you're pledging loyalty to it. When you obsess over someone who wronged you, you've already crowned them king in your mind. When you constantly check for approval, you've made the crowd your master. Machiavelli would call this the invisible submission of the modern mind, the kind of servitude that doesn't need chains or commands. It just needs your curiosity, your emotion, your reaction. The rulers of old had armies. The rulers of today have algorithms. And both use the same tactic: keep you emotionally occupied, so you never notice where your power actually went. Once you begin to see attention as loyalty, everything changes. You stop chasing every argument. You stop explaining yourself to people who've already decided who you are. You start walking away, not because you don't care, but because you finally understand the cost. Every minute you spend defending yourself to a fool is a minute stolen from your evolution. That's a trade Machiavelli would never make. He'd rather be misunderstood in silence than waste his focus trying to educate those who feed off his reaction. But here's the trap most people fall into. They think they can divide attention without consequence. They think multitasking is strength. It's not. It's a polite word for divided loyalty. A man who tries to win every small battle ends up losing the war. You can't conquer one domain while your mind is scattered across 5. Power demands singularity. The sharper your attention, the cleaner your decisions. The cleaner your decisions, the fewer regrets you collect. And that's what makes Machiavelli's perspective so brutal yet so liberating. He didn't believe in controlling everything. He believed in controlling where your attention goes, especially when emotions rise. He understood that anger, envy, and fear are not enemies, they're bait. They exist to hijack your focus, to make you spend it impulsively. The true strategist doesn't eliminate emotion. He observes it. He lets the storm pass while he plans in silence. That's why he wins. Because his attention isn't enslaved by what's loudest, only by what's useful. The world will constantly test this discipline. You'll have people who try to provoke you just to see if they can. You'll have environments designed to steal your time, coworkers who talk more than they act, family members who drain you with endless crises. Every one of them is a test of your attention's value. Will you spend it to soothe your ego or save it to build your future? Machiavelli would tell you, you are what you choose to notice. If you constantly notice chaos, you become chaotic. If you focus on structure, you become composed. And this is where most men lose their power. They confuse awareness with involvement. They think noticing something means they have to react to it. But real awareness is quiet. It's observation without participation. When someone tries to drag you into drama, don't respond. Just watch. Because when you stop feeding attention into nonsense, it starves and dies. The weak always seek attention. The strong always withhold it. That's the game. Now understand something deeper. Attention is the foundation of self-respect. When you give your focus to everything and everyone, you're telling yourself you have no hierarchy of value. You're signaling that anything can interrupt you, that anyone can reach you. But when you protect your attention, when you ignore the noise, turn down distractions, and become unavailable, you send a message to yourself first. My focus is sacred. That belief alone reshapes how others treat you. People always mirror how you value yourself. The man who guards his time makes others treat it like gold. The man who doesn't is treated like a public utility. Machiavelli would remind you that every empire begins with boundaries. Before you build outward, you must defend inward. Before you seek influence, you must secure focus. Your attention is the wall between chaos and order. If that wall has cracks, through constant scrolling, constant gossip, constant reaction, then nothing you build will stand for long. You'll know you're becoming powerful when silence starts to feel expensive. When you begin choosing who deserves your replies. When you no longer feel the need to be seen in every conversation, heard in every argument, or involved in every trend. That's not detachment, it's conservation. Machiavelli believed the wise man does not display all his strength. The same goes for attention. You don't show everyone what has your focus. You move quietly, study deeply, and act decisively. The loud spend their attention. The silent invest it. But let's talk about why this is so hard. It's not just about discipline. It's about addiction. The human brain is wired to seek novelty. The next notification, the next update, the next emotional high. The entire system you live in is built to exploit that. It trains you to equate stimulation with meaning. But stimulation isn't meaning. It's distraction disguised as importance. Machiavelli would laugh at how easy it's become to control modern minds. He used to study rulers who spent years planning how to influence a city. Now, one trending topic can manipulate millions within an hour. And they think they're informed, not controlled. To break that spell, you must retrain your brain to crave depth over noise. Stop grazing on fragments of information. Choose one subject and study it until you master it. Stop seeking instant emotional highs. Learn to enjoy the long silence before a breakthrough. Every time you resist the urge to check your phone or argue online, you're strengthening your attention muscle. Each act of restraint compounds. That's the slow, invisible path to inner power. You'll also start noticing something else. The fewer things you give attention to, the more powerful those things become. A conversation, when it has your full focus, reveals hidden truths. A book, when read without distraction, can reshape your worldview. A plan, when thought through deeply, can change your entire future. Power doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing less, but with total concentration. The scattered man lives many small lives. The focused one lives one great one. People will misunderstand this. They'll call you distant, arrogant, too serious. That's fine. They don't realize that attention is intimacy. When you give it to everyone, it loses meaning. When you give it to few, it becomes priceless. You're not being cold, you're being precise. Machiavelli would say, "He who gives warmth to all burns out." Reserve your mental fire for what truly matters, and you'll notice how quickly people start chasing your approval. As your attention becomes rarer, so does your presence. People start noticing when you enter a room because you don't appear often. They listen when you speak because you don't speak constantly. They value your approval because it's not easily earned. This is how quiet people become powerful. They make their attention the prize, not the offer. In a world desperate to be noticed, the one who withholds his attention becomes the one everyone notices first. And perhaps the cruelest truth Machiavelli would whisper is this: distraction is not harmless, it's obedience. Every time you let your attention be controlled by others, you're following their agenda, not yours. The modern world thrives on this silent obedience. They don't need your body in chains. They just need your focus pointed in the wrong direction. Because a distracted mind is easy to predict, easy to sell to, and easy to rule. So the next time you feel the pull to check, reply, react, pause, ask yourself, who profits from this attention, you or them? If the answer isn't you, walk away. That one question will expose how often you've been working for free in someone else's empire. And once you see that, you'll never look at distraction the same way again. There's a reason Machiavelli warned rulers never to appear too accessible, because access is the first step to control. The same principle applies to your mind. The easier it is to reach you, the easier it is to manipulate you. Every open channel is a potential invasion point. Every notification is a messenger entering your mental fortress. That's why the wise don't just limit who they talk to, they limit who can reach them at all. Accessibility feels generous in the moment, but it erodes power over time. It's like leaving your vault open and hoping thieves will be polite. When you start reducing access, people notice. Some will call you distant. Others will call you selfish. Let them. Machiavelli would say that it's better to be feared for your absence than forgotten for your availability. You can't lead or even command respect when everyone thinks they can interrupt you. That's why great leaders across time had rituals of withdrawal. Not laziness, not detachment, strategy. They stepped back to think, to calculate, to preserve the one resource even kings can't buy back: undivided attention. But here's the subtle truth. Protecting your attention isn't just about removing distractions. It's about choosing your enemies and allies wisely. Because attention flows wherever emotion goes. Hate and obsession consume focus just as quickly as pleasure and excitement. When you let resentment occupy your mind, you're still paying attention. You're just paying it to the wrong thing. Machiavelli would call that emotional bankruptcy. He knew that hatred is a terrible investment because it brings no return, only exhaustion. The moment someone can make you constantly think about them, they own part of your power. So the real game is emotional neutrality, not apathy, precision. You don't react to every insult. You don't rush to correct every lie. You learn the discipline of indifference. Because when you stop responding, manipulators lose their leverage. They feed off reaction. Silence starves them. That's the kind of strength people mistake for coldness. It's not cold, it's contained. The more you master this, the more time expands. Hours that used to vanish into drama or distraction suddenly become clear, usable, productive. You begin to realize how much of life you never truly lived because your mind was always elsewhere, chasing validation, defending opinions, consuming noise. Machiavelli would call that living in exile from yourself. The return begins when you take back your attention from everything that doesn't deserve it. Let's get practical. There are 3 levels of attention most people never distinguish. First is reactive attention, the kind hijacked by urgency and emotion. This is where most people live. Their focus is a leaf in the wind, blown by every headline, argument, or notification. Then there's selective attention, the ability to focus when required. This is where disciplined workers and thinkers operate. But the final level is sovereign attention, the power to direct and withdraw focus at will without emotional influence. That's where mastery lies. Machiavelli would say that only the sovereign mind can rule external chaos, because it's not ruled by internal noise. To reach that level, you must learn the art of deliberate withdrawal. Not forever, but regularly. Every few hours, step away from the noise. Don't just take a break. Observe where your mind goes when it has nothing to feed on. You'll see the patterns of your slavery. You'll realize who lives rent-free in your thoughts. And once you identify that, you can evict them. Attention detox isn't about quitting technology. It's about reclaiming sovereignty. You'll notice something eerie as you progress. Silence starts speaking. When your mind is no longer flooded, intuition gets louder. Patterns you missed before, motives, power plays, lies, become clear. Machiavelli valued this state above all else because clarity is the weapon of the powerful. The confused man cannot strategize. He can only react. And reaction is the opposite of rule. Guarding your attention also forces you to refine your desires. You begin to see how many of your ambitions weren't even yours. They were borrowed from what you consumed. You wanted what you saw, not what you truly valued. That's how empires manipulate citizens. They teach them what to desire. When you stop feeding on endless influence, you rediscover your original hunger, the one not manufactured by trends or social validation. And that's when your purpose sharpens into something unstoppable. But beware, clarity isolates. Once you start valuing attention as your greatest currency, you'll become intolerant of small talk, shallow entertainment, and people who drain your energy without depth. You'll walk away from things you once loved, not out of bitterness, but because they no longer yield returns. The mind that values compound growth cannot tolerate mental poverty. Machiavelli would remind you that isolation, in this sense, is not loneliness, it's consolidation. A king retreats to his fortress not to hide, but to strengthen his command. The hardest part will be letting go of your addiction to noise disguised as connection. You'll feel the pull to check, to respond, to scroll, resist. Power always begins with denial. Every no to distraction is a yes to your future self. You'll feel detached at first, almost empty. That's good. That emptiness is space. Space for strategy, creativity, foresight, all things the constantly stimulated never experience. And then something beautiful happens. You start noticing how calm your mind becomes. You start moving slower but thinking faster. You respond less but impact more. You no longer chase conversations. You control them. You don't over-explain, you state. You don't react, you predict. Your entire presence changes because your attention is no longer diluted. People feel that concentration of power even before you speak. That's the invisible aura Machiavelli admired, the kind that bends others' behavior without ever needing command. When you learn to treat attention like money, you stop living on credit. You stop overdrawing your energy on meaningless pursuits. You start budgeting it toward what compounds skills, insight, alliances, strategy. And soon, what looked like slow progress becomes exponential power. Because while others are busy paying mental rent to every distraction that knocks, you're building capital. Invisible, silent capital that no one can steal. By the time they realize it, it's too late. While they scattered their focus across trivialities, you invested yours into mastery. And that's how Machiavelli's law of attention becomes prophecy. Those who control where their mind goes today control where their life goes tomorrow. Power doesn't appear overnight. It accrues, quietly, in the compound interest of undivided focus. Guard it like gold, and the world eventually bows to your precision.